let's get more on this story. Stephen Legomsky is a former chief counsel for the US Citizenship and Immigration Services. Good to have you with us, Stephen. So Donald Trump's rationale for all of this is that he is simply protecting the United States. In your opinion, is this ban from these 7 predominantly Muslim countries making the US safer?
Well, thank you for having me. My short answer is no. I just think that the amount of suffering that this will cause and the level of cruelty that it reflects are simply beyond measure. If anything, this, I think, detracts from our fight against terrorism because it will simply radicalize more people, and in addition will discourage our allies in the Middle East and in other Muslim countries from cooperating with us in our fight against ISIS. So it does seem counterproductive and at the same time very cruel given the level of crisis in the refugee world.
Indeed. You, of course, were the chief counsel at US Citizenship and Immigration Services in the Obama administration. What do you make of the fact that Trump based his list of banned countries on one already prepared by the Obama administration?
Well, actually, the list of countries that is included was based on a statute that Congress had passed in the aftermath of 9/11. And I think the strategy of the administration was fairly clear. They didn't want to use the word Muslim in the executive order because to do so would invite a more certain constitutional challenge. So instead they worded it in terms of 7 particular countries, all of which happen to be Muslim majority. They're hopeful that by doing so they will insulate themselves from constitutional challenge, but whether that will succeed remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, several federal judges have already blocked parts of the executive order. Do you think we're going to see a clash between the federal courts and the Trump administration?
I think we're certain to see such a clash, yes. To be fair to President Trump, the president does have the authority under U.S. law to decide the maximum number of refugees we'll accept in a given year and from which countries or regions. What is so questionable about this is that it so parallels his consistent claims during the campaign and to some extent afterwards that he wants to target Muslim majority countries. And that's what makes it problematic because under our Constitution, one is guaranteed the free exercise of religion, and there are also prohibitions on discrimination based on either religion or race or certain other factors. So constitutional challenges are sure to come, and whether they will succeed is difficult to predict.
Right, and then there's also the issue that the Trump administration could add the number of countries that this ban affects. That list could get longer.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's somewhat mystifying which countries were not included. It didn't include Afghanistan. It didn't include Saudi Arabia or Egypt. These are the main countries from which the 9/11 terrorists were coming. And yet the countries on the list don't have nearly the levels of terrorism and production of terrorism that some of those other omitted countries do. So we're all waiting with bated breath to see which other countries, if any, will ultimately be added to the list.
And just very quickly, in the meantime, we've seen a massive backlash around the world. The UK demanding that Trump's state visit be cancelled. Iraq trying to get Americans banned from entering their country. In the US, so many protest marches. Where do you think all of this is going to lead?
Well, my guess is that between the courts and much popular resistance, there might be some backtracking from this. But what President Trump has demonstrated so far is that his policies are geared to the preferences of his base. And I'm not sure whether the fact that so many people are opposed to these policies is going to dissuade him. One of the greater fears we have is that so much of this appears to be driven by his chief strategist, Steve Bannon, who has been associating in white supremacist circles for so many years. This clearly has Bannon's hand on it, and apparently there was very little vetting by DHS, that is Homeland Security, or by the immigration experts elsewhere in the administration. So what will come next is somewhat scary and difficult to predict.
Good to speak with you, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Stephen Legomsky there in St. Louis.